Hey guys, it's Nesker. So we've finally had 8.1 launching, and I've had a day or two to play around with it, and I think and I think I have a pretty decent idea of what a spec looks like right now and what it's going to be looking like in the future. So I thought I would go over it here. So some people who aren't entirely certain on what talents to use, what stats to go for, etc., might get a better idea of how to play the spec and perform better in raids, hopefully. Um, so yeah, first let's go over stats actually. The stats have changed, as you can probably imagine with a big patch like this. Since they removed our and like all of our inherent additional scaling with haste, haste is now going to be valued extremely low. Let me bring up my personal stat weights right here. As you might see, mastery, crit, verse are now way ahead of haste, which is valued the bottom tier. For you it might be a bit different because I have a ton of crit right now, so crit is valued slightly lower than I expected. Which means that I'm going to have to play around with some sockets actually. But yeah, all you really need to know is that Mastery and Crit are going to be your best stats, most likely. I want to stress this. Just make sure to sim yourself before you do any big changes to your gear, because these weights will shift around. But what I can say for certain is that since most ferals have a lot of haste from 8.0.1, you're going to want to get rid of as much as possible to a point, because eventually haste is going to be valued higher than it is right now. So just don't get rid of all of your haste. Like you're going to need some, because the value is going to go up the lower it is. So yeah, that's a rough idea of what your stats are going to be looking like. So let's go over talents. Talents is where we've had the most changes. So let's go over row by row. Change here is we've had Sabertooth added to this tier, and they've removed the blood scent entirely. Sabertooth works exactly as before. It might have different text on it, but it works the same. Just with different text, which means that Sabertooth is now competing, or rather Lunar Inspiration is now competing with Sabertooth, meaning that Lunar Inspiration is now dog shit because it's fucking Sabertooth. Sorry for the swearing. This tier we've had Wild Charge of the GCD, so that's nice. No changes in this tier. Typhoon, no changes here. This tier we've had a maybe nerf to Savage Roar. Instead of giving us 15% damage, it now gives us 10% damage and 10% energy regeneration. From what I can tell, it's worse than before, so rip that. We have Incarnation, which has been stealth, or it's been like indirectly nerfed by the nerf to stealth crit or stealth shred damage. It used to be 50%. Now it's 30%, so it's kind of bad. So these two have sort of been nerfed, but regardless, Solid of Forest is just better. Better for the moment. They might tune these, or they might reduce the effectiveness of this, but for the moment, in most cases, Solid of Forest is going to be best for a single target. Then in this tier we have Scent of Blood, which is garbage, Brutal Slash, which we all know it's pretty good, Primal Wrath, which it's going to be better later, I think. Right now it's a bit too weak, most likely because we have a lot of haste, and haste likes Brutal Slash because it reduces the recharge time. So that's likely why Brutal Slash is going to be best for most AoE cases until you get less haste than Blood Talents as usual. So yeah, this is the single target build. Only change is going to be the only change you're going to do for AoE is going to be picking a Predator. Some people say Primal Wrath, but I would wait with getting Primal Wrath because I don't think it's strong enough yet with the gear we have. So this might be better once the new raid comes out and we get different gear. But right now, I think this is too weak compared to Brutal Slash. And in this tier, there's also the fact that none of these two provide any single target damage, while Brutal Slash does. Provides a decent amount of single target damage actually. A bunch of single target burst even, if you consider it like that. Right. So let's go over some asnwer traits. I think this is an interesting thing that they've changed. Get my bag up here. Basically, there are two traits that I would say to look for. That's going to be Jungle Fury, and let's see if I have it here. It's going to be Jungle Fury and the Gushing Lacerations. They're just the strongest right now, I think, because like gear is like everyone has different stats. Everyone has different asnwer gear, so it's very important to sim yourself before you focus in on something. This is just what works best for me, which is right now I'm running Arcava of the Titans for the reorigination buff, and I'm running 2 jungle furies. But it might be different for you. You might not have the gear. You might only have one of the pieces, or one of the Gushing Lacerations pieces. So it's very important to sim yourself to be sure, because I can't tell for certain that this is going to be the best traits for you. But what I'm willing to say is that going after Jungle Fury traits and Gushing Laceration traits are probably going to be worth your time, and it's probably going to be worth to sim with those traits, so you have a good base of what to sim after. Right. So that's talent, that's traits, that's stat weights. So let's have a look at abilities. We've had one big change, and that's to rip. Instead of combo points increasing damage, it now increases duration, which is going to be nice in some cases. For our opener, for instance, our opener with Sabretooth is now really simple. I'm going to show you once we get into the rotation, but it's very enjoyable to use, because you don't really have to stress over having 5 combo points and having Blood Talons and having Tiger's Fury up. You just have to have 1 combo points, and you have to have Blood Talons and Tiger's Fury up, and you're basically golden. Right. So let's go over the rotation slightly. You're obviously gonna want to start by precasting regrowth. Oh, and for the record, numbers won't matter here, because I'm forced to go to the Dream Grove, because it's way too laggy in Borealis, and it's way too laggy in Stormwind. So yeah, the damage numbers won't be accurate, because I'm going to be using AoE, and I'm not going to be buffing myself, etc., etc. I'm going to be talking while I'm trying to DPS, so a lot of factors to take into account. But yeah, basically, get your Blood Talons up, stealth, precast Berserk about 1 second before you pull, cast Tiger's Fury, cast Rake, cast Rip, and then you're going to want to burst. Brutal Slash during your Tiger's Fury window, because in my case at least, I'm going to have 2 stacks of Jungle's Fury, which is going to net me about 50%, or it's going to net me about 20 additional % crit strike, and with my other procs I'm going to be getting around 50% crit during Tiger's Fury. So for me personally, and for you as well, you're going to want to be pumping out your Brutal Slash charges during Tiger's Fury, and you're gonna want to pool Brutal Slash as much as possible. That's going to be a way to min-max your single target DPS. So let's go over it. Right, so just Berserk 1 second before Tiger's Fury, and now during our Tiger's Fury window, we're going to burst as much as possible, and at 5 combo points we're just gonna Ferocious Bite. And at this point, it's basically autoplay. This is this is basically how you're going to be playing it out now. And just maintain your Rip and Rake. You're not gonna want to worry about Thrash anymore, because they buffed Shred, so it's no longer worth it to use Thrash. Just make sure that you always you always expel your brutal slashes during your Tiger's Fury window, and when you don't have Tiger's Fury up, you want to make sure that you're pulling okay, kind of messed up here. It's best of it. Nice, saved me. Yeah, you want to make sure that you're always keeping at around 2 stacks of brutal slash. You never want to, well, you don't really want to see it like, okay, there I kind of messed up, but yeah, like you don't want to see it stack on itself. You always want to make sure that it's rolling all the time. Yeah, don't look too much at the damage numbers. It's not really like, doesn't really give you a good idea of what kind of damage you're going to be doing, because right now I'm not using any buffs. I'm not using heroism. I'm talking while I'm doing it, which is distracting me a bit. In this case, we're just gonna pull a bit. Yeah, running without jagged wounds is very noticeable. You're sort of going to get stuck with a blood talon stack, and a good way to get rid of that is by instead of using okay, I'm talking too much. Instead of using shred, when you have a stack just like sitting there doing nothing, just use brutal slash instead. Even if you might like, yeah, even if it might not be totally worth it, I mean, it's better than using shred, so why not? Like here, for instance, this one is going to be capped. Why use shred when I can use brutal slash? Just slightly more damage. It's just a way to see it. Another burst window. This thing's pretty big to slash crits. So yeah, that's a decent idea of how to play single target feral right now. DPS is distributed sort of what you expect. It's just basically a boatload of ferocious bite damage, with yeah, sort of everything else sort of taking a backseat. So yeah, that's gonna be essentially how you run single target DPS as feral. There are ways to min-max your damage when it comes to adds during fights, like Sekvos. During Sekvos, for instance, you're going to want to make sure that you have all of your brutal slash charges up during the add phases, so that you always hit more than one target, which is very, very important for really maximizing your damage output. But yeah, there are a ton of small things that I really can't go over. It would just take too long. But that's a basic idea of the changes we've had, and how to adapt to them properly. Thanks for watching. See you.